What the fuck was the release date bullshit smothering this movie? I was told by the almighty internet, the trailer and the movie poster itself that Happy Death Day would be released on October the 13th, which this year is a Friday. Ooh, how quirky. But after literally seconds of research, I discovered that it doesn't reach my shores until the 20th of the same month. Normally this type of crap doesn't bother me at all, but I intended to have this review uploaded on Halloween Day in the name of relevance and cliche indulgence. Of course, you're probably thinking that 11 days is more than enough time to bash out a review, and under the circumstances of traditional journalism, you'd be right. A written review would be slammed into the barely bloody readable section on my website mere moments after viewing this movie. But because of the many aspects these videos contain, combined with other shit I do, would make an 11-day deadline harder to meet than a well-mannered, hospitable and polite Glaswegian. I only have myself to blame for this. I chose to review films this way, mainly because I find making these things an adequate alternative to self-harming, but mostly due to the fact I'd rather slip my own ball bag than be one of those bellends that sits at their desk with strategically placed memorabilia tat serving as the background to their video whilst being all like, yeah, movies! At some poor and unfortunate camera for X amount of minutes. See literally 99.9% of movie reviews for an example. Basically what I'm saying is for me to be able to spunk out one of my videos in 11 days, I'd have to give up on sex, sleep, a social life, sobriety and sanity. Anyway, my inner bitterness aside, it's Collegian Tree Gelbman's birthday. She wakes up that morning in a dorm belonging to the most generic cunt alive, hungover to fuck with very little memory from the night before. After a series of campus bullshit events later, she's murdered by a hooded figure wearing a mask of the college mascot. The next morning she wakes up in the same bed on the same day, starting off an exact repeat of the previous events, with Tree being the only one able to recall any of it. With limited help from the generic cunt, Tree decides to work out who a killer is and try to stop them before she ends up being butchered more than Dwayne Johnson's chances of being taken seriously after that fucking Baywatch thing. For what I believe is a first for the film industry, the most original, creative and innovative part of the movie takes place before the studio logos have had a chance to drag their bloated husks across the film reel, which is a shame because there was a lot of potential that could have been explored with this premise, albeit not original, but at least the movie had the decency to reference that. The fact that it's basically a game of soggy biscuit between Groundhog Day, Live, Die, Repeat and Scream gives it the opportunity to fuck off the idea of coming up with an in-depth plot that requires imagination, because a collection of writers have already done that for you. Happy Death Day is an excuse to cram as much death scenes as possible into 100 minutes without you having to really follow any narrative or explanation as to why the days reset themselves after she dies and no one else, killer included, apart from Tree, seems to be aware of it. Don't use your brain on this one, the very nature of the movie insists upon it. Unfortunately, Happy Death Day didn't really capitalise on the possibility to have a higher death toll than my average trip to the free clinic. According to Tree, she died 16 times, there was one final death after that. However, I've seen it twice and counted 10 deaths on both occasions, meaning that there may have been deaths taking place off screen, or there will be more featured in the Blu-ray edition with that line from Tree not edited out for the theatrical version for some reason. Either way, it isn't really that many deaths over an hour and 40 minutes, and it's not exactly like it's traded quantity for quality. There was only one death scene that contained a shred of originality, whereas the rest of them have been featured in horror movies more times than cocaine appeared on Carrie Fisher's autopsy report. The acting was, well, as to be expected. But credit does have to go to Jessica Roth for carrying Happy Death Day through what I can imagine being a very monotonous role to film. She maintained her energy and consistency throughout the entire duration and literally in every scene of the movie. However, it wasn't enough to distract me from the walk of shame she had to take repeatedly from the dorm she woke up in to her sorority. In between those locations rests the courtyard that Tree has to go through in order to get back home. On the way we encounter the typical kind of goth douchebag, the environment's fuck piece, two people trying to pick each other's teeth with their tonsils, some pledge bullshit and a jock asshole. I don't know about you, but after being introduced to these farts in the wind over and over again, my patience towards being able to handle that many tightly compressed cliches started to wear thin. It was also wasted time that could have been dedicated to quenching my thirst for violence, which by the end of the movie was still feeling insatiable. I went into Happy Death Day wanting to see a vast variety of death scenes as well as a 15 or so second montage of Tree dying a barbaric amount of times. Alas, the movie's attempt at said montage concluded with my lust for blood feeling more abandoned than George R.R. Martin's computer keyboard. Another thing I didn't like about the movie was the killer's mask. Not because it terrified me so much to the point where I can't even look at the screen, fuck no, far from it. It just doesn't do anything for me outside of giggling over the fact it looks like someone drew a really shit caricature on an overinflated testicle. I honestly expected a better design from the man who built the Ghostface / Father Death mask, compared to some of the classics like Leatherface, Voorhees, Myers, Vader, and to be honest his own previous work as well. The Happy Death Day mask looks like total shit. Fuck, even that Poundland piece of tat you brought for Halloween is probably much better than this one, which looks like someone took a screenshot of a baby's face during its first trip to church and glued it to a shameful attempt at paper mache. A modern day example of a well-designed mask is the Brandon James one from the Scream TV series, which is basically a kabuki mask with extra steps. What makes it, as well as the masks I mentioned earlier on in this paragraph, so effective is that there is virtually no expression whatsoever, meaning that the mask is a blank canvas when it comes to interpretation. It's versatile, discreet, and its scariness lies within its simplicity. The killer wearing this mask reveals nothing about their emotions or agenda. You can't tell what they are thinking or what they are about to do before it's it's way too fucking late and your evening is ruined. Even when wearing the same outfit, a psycho in an expressionless mask is much more terrifying than a psycho donning a smile printed on their face because it makes them very one-dimensional, and also dilutes any intimidation that may have been previously established before the reveal. Oh, and the look of the mask overall looks like it was an arts and crafts project made by a group of amputees with Parkinson's disease. Mask aside, the killer, whose identity I totally called before the first act concluded by the way, has no presence whatsoever, making the jump scares ineffective. I've mentioned in the past that I don't see whoever is under the mask as a person, more like an entity draped in clothing, because there is no face to look at apart from whatever's on the mask. That combined with their outfit covering up all other aspects of their flesh gives them a dehumanizing presence. The killer always seems to be able to catch up to the fastest running victim by only adopting what could barely qualify as a slightly brisk walk. On occasion, the killer would end up on the wrong end of something painful that, despite looking like it hurt, doesn't humanize them because the mask severs us from facial expression and groans of pain are never emitted. With this killer, I didn't see them as an unstoppable force wearing a baby mask and a hoodie, but some autonopiophilia enthusiast with a thing for blondes. Overall, if you're going to see Happy Death Day for the reasons that, well, also belong to the rest of the people in your screening, those itches will not be scratched. What you do get is a dedicated performance that deserved to be in a better movie, but despite that I still left my showing less satisfied than a paedophile leaving a brothel ran by dwarves.